never say who I am, but it's not like on the bottom of the screen or anything. But in case you want to know how to pronounce it, I'm Shitona Hevig, and I love books. I feel like I'm in an AA meeting. Is there like a BA meeting? A book BRA meeting? Oh, no, we don't want that one. BDA. How about Book Devourers Anonymous? Let's go with that because we don't want book readers. Only me. So I almost didn't do this video because there was this part of me that I was like, who cares what you like and don't like? That's just who you are, and who cares? But then I realized knowing what I like and don't like might help someone take my opinion on some book and go, she hates that? Well, that's what I love, so I want to check that book out. I mean, it would help, you know. Maybe they like other things that I like. Maybe they love a good mystery, but they don't like Christian fiction. Well, I'm going to rave about all the faith in this book, and they're going to go, well, I don't want that one, but I'm going to complain about this element of lack of faith or whatever in a book, and they're going to go, that's the one for me. So when I thought about it, I was like, you're wrong. So here I am to give you the 5 things I love and hate in books. And I'm going to start with hate because I like to end on a positive note because I really don't like negativity if I can avoid it. These are in no particular order except the first 5 are negative, things I hate. The next 5 are the things I love. They're not the only things I hate. They're not the only things I love, but they are the ones that will affect my star rating, and they're the ones that will help me decide if I'll read more from that author. They're also the ones that will determine if I DNF a book on the negative or if I go down the rabbit hole and read everything that everybody that loves that book will read. All right, again, no particular order. The things I hate in books. Number 1, which is going to sound kind of funny from someone who loves solidly faith-filled Christian fiction, but I hate preaching in books. And I'm not just talking about a sermon being preached from a pulpit in a story. I actually like those. I like heavy theology in books. I like dialogue between characters who are struggling with some aspect of their faith. That's not what I personally mean by preachy fiction. In fact, for me, preachy fiction has nothing to do with faith. It's going to be kind of weird, but here we go. You ready? For me, preachy fiction is anytime an author is using that book with an agenda to change my opinion on something. Not to show me something, another way to think about it, but to actually affect change in me. That is the purpose of the story, which is why a recent book I read, I bought it in Ambleside, England. It was Emma Carroll's something at Truthwater Lake. I don't remember. Something about Truthwater Lake. But anyway, it was a delightful story. That book would have been an easy 5 stars if it hadn't been so heavy-handed with an agenda. The purpose of that book felt like, whether the author meant it to or not, I can't say because I don't know her heart, but that book felt like I'm going to convert children to my way of thinking on something. And yet, for all I know, she doesn't even hold that opinion. I don't know, but that's how the book came across. So I hated the book and I left it behind on Sky. I was not going to waste any of my luggage weight on a book that I couldn't recommend because I didn't enjoy that aspect so much. It was that strong. It was really heavy-handed, particularly in regards to population. I was like, seriously? Make a kid feel guilty for existing. That's how it felt to me. So that's what I mean by preaching. So science, a good example of someone who didn't preach in a book that I was afraid that would happen is The Evolution of Calpurnia Tate. That author did not get preachy on evolution. She wasn't trying to convert you to an opinion about it or whatever. She was trying to show this is a new thought and how people were reacting to it, and this is what it is. It opens up great conversation, but it wasn't, I'm going to convince you that you must agree with everything that Mr. Darwin says. That wasn't in there. So, but science, political ideology, historical perspectives, religion, faith, which can be the same or different depending on the circumstance, anything where you've got someone who's you can tell the intent of the book is to change your thinking and become a little authorite, you know, whatever that author is pushing. That I don't like. And everybody has a different definition of that. I understand that. Some people would consider some of my books preachy, which is hilarious because the ones that they consider the preachiest are the ones that I actually disagree with the main characters. That's always fun. Why do you believe? And I'm like, I don't, but the character does. And I want Christians to understand each other, even when they disagree. So, preachy of any kind, just don't try to convert me to your opinion. Show me your opinion. Show me why people believe it. But don't try to make me believe it through your writing. I don't like that. Next up, excessive description. I'm not that person who loves, 18 pages of describing a room, which one edition of Dickens, I can't even remember which book it was. I think I counted 18 pages just describing a room. I don't care. If you can make me feel the world and see the world with lots of description and I don't notice because it's that well done and it's that well woven in, I would say Elizabeth Goudge and The Little White Horse kind of does that. Great. Ellen Montgomery does that. There's a lot of description in her books, but you don't really notice it. And I think it's because the purpose it's not a world info dump. You're not just suddenly getting whomp. Let's just shove the whole world down your throat and now we can get going, which is probably why I don't like Tolkien, but I'm going to. I will be a Tolkien fan someday. Somehow. It's gonna happen. I don't need to know how many flowers there are on each stripe of the wallpaper. I just don't need to know. There's that. Next up, foul language. I particularly dislike irreverent or flippant uses of God's name. Even more than that, hate it when it's taken in vain, but I hold a different position on what that means than some people. If you look at the context of what the scriptures are saying, it's talking more of a, don't swear on God's name and then break it kind of thing. So obviously I hate that. But flippant and irreverent uses of God's name really bother me. But so do most four-letter words, including the euphemism for excrement. Not just the primary one that is appalling to people, to some people, but also the softer versions. I hear any of them and I want to just hand someone a roll of toilet paper and say, go for it. It's not my thing. And so I particularly dislike, what they like to call F-bombs. I don't even like that word. That really bothers me. But I hate it. I particularly hate it when those or other words are sprinkled throughout a book like Rose Petals. Guys, they stink. They don't smell good. If you're going to replace a comma or an adjective with a foul word, why? Because why? I just did not rate a great book, primarily because of the complete wasted use of foul words. I hated it. Now, I have other books that have had foul words in them that I have given good ratings to because A, they weren't flippant and just thrown in to be throwing them in. They had a purpose in them, even if I disagreed with the purpose. And B, they didn't just keep piling up. They were random. I'm going to use an example. So, most of the Harry Potter books didn't have a lot of foul words. When they did, I didn't appreciate it. There was one I seriously cheered at the end of the last book when Molly Weasley used a word. I can't believe I cheered, but I did. 6 o'clock in the morning, I'm finishing that book on the day it released. We got it at almost 1 o'clock in the morning. And I sat down and read that sucker. And when we got to that scene, I stood up and went, yes, 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 yes. And probably woke up some of my kids. But, oh well. Now they know that they need to go read the book, right? So there's that. Don't like foul words. I want to give an example that isn't a book. Because people will tell me that you need foul words for authenticity. Newsflash, authors, you don't. And my dad, we watched a movie with Sylvester Stallone. I don't remember the rest. But we watched a movie with Sylvester Stallone. And my dad said there's lots of really ugly language in it, just constant. My dad said, you're in New York City, they're police officers, it would be ridiculous, they would sound stupid if it wasn't there. And it made sense. His argument made sense. Totally believed him. Then we saw it on TV a few years later. And of course, TV back in the 80s cut it all out. Guess what? My dad turned to me, the only time in my entire life he did this, my dad turned to me and said, I was wrong. It doesn't need it. It didn't need it. So I'm not going to say it there. It's never the right word. I actually wanted to put it in one of my books in one spot. It would have been exactly what would have happened, but I couldn't. I won't break trust with my readers that way. And it's Christian fiction. That will break trust. So foul language, not my thing. All right, next up, it was probably going to be obvious, but it is any smut, any spice really. Most sensuality, even. I don't like an overly sensual book, which is probably why I don't enjoy authors like Francine Rivers, and why there are a couple of books that I've been eager to read that I'm a little afraid of. Because, no, just no. A book I just recently read didn't have any on-page stuff, but there was an awful lot of complaining about, it was kind of ironic, you know, complaining about how she has to listen to all the stuff going on the other side in great detail. And I'm like, so you're making us endure it with you regardless. So I just, when it boils down to it, I get that sex, romance, sensuality, all those things are a part of life. And I'm okay with that. Even in marriage, it's not right. Don't drag me into the room. I don't care if I know that something has happened or will happen, or to a small degree, even if something's going on, as long as I'm not being dragged in there to participate by being in right there. I just don't bring me into your, I don't want to see it on the street corner. I don't want to see it in my living room, and I don't want to see it in front of my eyeballs when I'm reading a book. I don't watch it on TV. I don't read it. I don't want it. The minute you force me to participate in someone's private moment, you've lost me. Finally, the last thing, which is probably the strongest thing that I hate, is Christian fiction that isn't. I have no problem with clean fiction. It doesn't have to have Christ in it. Clean fiction's good. I appreciate it. I don't care if it's, I don't even care if there's fiction that has a Christian worldview without bringing faith onto the page. I'm good with that too. Just don't call it Christian fiction, because when you call it Christian fiction, you're making a promise to a reader that there will be faith in there that you can learn from, draw from, you know, something. And when that faith element isn't there, it really gets to me, because that's just clean fiction then. And some publishers, I feel funny calling out, but I'm going to do it. Some publishers, like Thomas Nelson, have now created what they're considering bridge books that are there to show the world that there's good fiction that just doesn't have these, you know, language and sensual stuff in them, and yet they're still good stories, as a way to help them see that maybe even the stuff that has the faith in it is still good for you too. That's great and that's wonderful, but they did it under their imprint, which is known to be a Christian fiction publisher. And when a Christian fiction publisher changes and does something like that, they need to A, let people know, and probably B, come up with a new imprint. I'm just saying, because you broke my trust. I opened a book and I'm expecting to, you know, have a little snack of faith, at least, to help me in my personal walk, point me to scripture, show me. And when there's nothing at all, what makes it Christian then? Clean and Christian are not equal. Sometimes Christian fiction is going to have some ugliness in it. I'm thinking of L.K. Simonds' All In. That book is rough. There's stuff in there I didn't want to read. But it is Christian fiction, because it all points to our need for Christ without apology. It points to that. And it's a good book. It was a hard book for me because there's stuff in there I just didn't want to read. And I think there are actually things that are in this other part of the list that are in that book. There was a point to it, and it never went too far, but it was there. But it was still Christian fiction because it pointed me to Christ. And Sweet and Clean and Wholesome might reflect Christian values, but it doesn't point me to Christ. So that bothers me pretty much more than anything. When I open a book and expect Christian fiction and all I get is clean. There's that. On to the fun stuff. So one of my favorite things in fiction is quirky, flawed characters. I love flawed characters. And so for an example, pretty much anything Ellen Montgomery writes is going to have some quirky characters. She does a great job at showing family dynamics and how bizarre they look to outsiders and how they totally make sense to us. So it's not just in this one. You see it a lot in Windy Poplars. It shows up a lot there. It shows up definitely in The Blue Castle. And in this one, just like Marigold. If you took Marigold and Francie Nolan from A Tree Grows in Brooklyn and smashed them into one child, that was me as a kid. I totally get Marigold. Another one that I didn't have handy, Uva, a man called Uva. He is an amazing, wonderful, quirky character. Loved him, loved everything about him. Even when I didn't love him, because it's so real and it's so understandable and so relatable, even though I don't relate to him at all. I do, because he's great. In my opinion, A.J. Fickery is the Uva of booksellers. This book has problems that, I can't actually recommend it because of some of the content, language being one. It's not completely gratuitous, but it's there, and I don't appreciate it. But there are some other things that are kind of like, But the characters are quirky, particularly AJ, and his daughter is a hoot. I do love the story. So, quirky characters. This is another one with some great family quirky characters that feels a little Montgomery-ish. The evolution, I want to say revolution every single time. The evolution of Calpurnia Tate. Their family has all the quirks. Her grandpa is a hoot. I want her to smack him and hug him at the same time, and I'm not even a hugger. So this, quirky characters, and even the characters in Storming kind of fit. Not as well as some of these others, but they kind of fit. Clara Kipp, she's definitely quirky from The Extraordinary Deaths of Mrs. Kipp. There are too many quirkies. I could go on all day. The quirkier, the better. Flawed. All the flawedness. Oh! I left out some books. I didn't bring them in. How about... So, Pepper Basham's Jane by the Book. That book ticks a lot of boxes for me, actually. Quirky character Titus is my all-time favorite male character. Period. Even more than the guy in The Body They May Kill. Titus is I just fell in love with that guy first, and he's one of my all-time favorite characters. But Titus he is amazing. He is so messed up and so quirky and so fun. And Pepper actually wrote, so in that book, Pepper's known for her kisses. She's all about the kissing, and I just flip past them. It's just not my thing. In that book, she wrote kissing in a totally different way. And she did it because she knows my problems. So she wanted to play with it and see, can you write something that has the same effect on the reader where they get their swoons without actual describing lip lock? And she did it, and it's genius. And if all authors did stuff like this, I could read more kisses, because this was hilarious. It was fun, and mostly because Titus. Jane is nice. I like Jane, and Jane is good for Titus. But character-wise, she's nothing. She's got nothing on him. He's just love Titus. So, quirky characters. I just thought of something. The doctor in Dear Enemy, which is the sequel to Daddy Longlegs, when Sally McBride goes to take over the orphanage, the doctor, that guy, great character. Love him. Just throwing that out there. Number 2 would be delightful word usage. And by that, I don't mean purple prose. I don't even like most lyrical writing. I do love Amanda Dykes. I like what she does with words. There's that quote about James Michener. He's like, I love the sway of words as they tangle with human emotions, or something like that. Yeah, Amanda Dykes, she does a great job with that. Also, the gal who wrote The Incorrigible Children of Ashton Place, she does great things with words. Genius things with words. Loved her. Also, I talked about it in my first half of June books I read, Storming. The way K.M. Weiland uses words, love it. I don't like lots of words. I don't like overly descriptive words. I've already talked about that. But what I do love is when you take those words and you use them really well and you appeal to me through the words. But I only like it if it fits the story and the characters. I don't want someone using great words just to be using great words. Just saying. All right, next up is banter. I love good banter, especially if it's not in a rom-com. Because rom-coms are kind of known for their great banter. One of the best banters I've ever read, it was so much fun, was in this one. Don't recommend this book. But it was in here. Great banter. It's a rom-com. Of course it's going to have good banter. It's a rom-com. Rom-coms tend to, like Dear Mr. Knightley. Great banter in this thing. It's epistolary. It's a mashup of Emma and Daddy Longlegs. Heavier on the Longlegs than the Emma, but still pretty good. This one, it's a hilarious book. It's fun banter. It's not the best banter ever, but it's got some good banter. Also, Sydney and Juliet in the Guernsey Literary Potato Peel Pie Society. This one, their correspondence is nothing but banter, and it's hilarious. I love it. Also, I'll have a whole video on just these books someday, I'm sure of it. But The Squire's Tale, The Lioness and Her Knight, this is the first one of these I read. It's like book 8 or something. Authors, please put numbers on your spines, please. By all that is holy. Anywho, our publishers do it. Authors, you don't get a choice. Unless you're your own publisher, and then do it. No, Gerald Morris took all the Arthurian legends and like smashed them together into one really great, wonderful story for each main Arthurian story. So The Lioness and Her Knight, the banter in here is off the charts brilliant. I read it when I ordered it when I was sick because I wanted a good read. I was so sick, I wasn't even thinking about the fact that it's not going to come in while I'm sick. But it didn't matter. Read this book, promptly bought the rest of the series. Great, hilarious books. But yeah, banter, because banter. And I have to say this because it's not done usually. I think, does Enola Holmes do it where it breaks the wall and talks directly to the reader? I think so. And so sometimes that kind of thing can come off as banter. And this little book, I can't stop talking about this book because it is so absolutely, just brilliantly hilarious. It's short. It's like 80 pages or something. Where's the page numbers? Yeah, 77 pages. But it's a complete story in 77 pages. It's not that you don't want more, you do, but not because the story isn't told. It's not perfect. There's There's quirky characters, there's wittiness, but the banter in this book is between you and the author. And it's genius. It's in footnotes, and it's in just, you know, speaking directly to the reader. And it's, anyway, it's Reay Clausen, Chantal Reads All Day's daughter. If you haven't read it, seriously, go buy the book. The book is inexpensive. I'm just going to flip it around some more. No, the book is inexpensive, but it is so good. You would never believe that kid. I don't know, what is she, 13, 14? She's just a kid, and she did a great job. Just putting that out there. The number 4 thing I really love in books is when setting feels like a character in itself. So Ellen Montgomery does this. She does this really well. Trying to think of other books other than what I have here. There are some, and there are some that are like contemporary fiction or historical fiction that aren't more spec-ficky, you know, like Ellen Montgomery's isn't. But right now, all I could think of were these. This one is harder to show that, you know, just to talk about it. But this is the No Less Days series by Amanda G. Stevens, and she writes description in a way so that the setting does, and the setting isn't the same place every time, but there's something about what she does that makes me feel like it's its own character. And it might be how one particular setting affected all these lives. I mean, in this series, there are a few people who cannot die. So they're very, very old, and they can't die. And they would love to die, but they can't. And this is Christian fiction, so it's spec Christian fiction. But I'm just gonna flip it around some more. No, but there's something about it that I can't describe, but this one to me feels like the setting is its own character. So there's that. Obviously, Narnia. This one's The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. In this one, setting is its own character because the setting is alive in a sentient way. You know, you're talking about the trees and the stuff. So the setting is sentient, so of course it's going to be a character. But for what it's worth, you know, Harry Potter. I mean, come on, when you've got trees that attack cars and, you know, staircases that move, and it definitely feels like the world, even Privet Drive, you know, where he lives when he's not in school, it feels like a character. And it's what Rowling did there is really good. So, for what it's worth. Man, I love this book. Anyway, someday we will talk Potter, because I was the anti-Potter person until I discovered how wrong I was about what's in it. So anywho, and then finally, I will rave about this book probably a lot. I love this book. I'm dying for the next one in the series. Deborah, please, we're begging you, give us the next book. But The Kingdom of Ruins and Point's Worth are both in the same world. This is another book where the setting, or part of the setting, is sentient. So it makes sense that it would feel like its own character, for what it's worth. All right, and finally, the last thing that I love in books are anything that makes me think. And it doesn't have to be something I love in a book. I just love it when books make me think, even if I don't like the book. A good example of a book I didn't like, but I gave it 4 stars because it made me think and it really taught me things, would be D.E. Stevenson's The Baker's Daughter. That book should have been a 2-star read because I just really hated the story. But I learned so much from that book that it got 4. It was good writing, and it taught me a lot. And sorry, I don't like the story, but I love what it did for me. So I gave it 4 stars. This one's another one, actually, that the setting feels like a character and has a quirky character. And yet it wasn't my favorite of the Goudge books. I liked it. I didn't think, for a while there, I wondered if I'd DNF it, but this book was really good. But this one really did make me think about a lot of things, about what it means to give your word, what it means to follow a call, what it means to look at the past and see how it affects the future, and a bunch of other stuff. This one wasn't as thought-provoking as some of the other ones I have here, but this one definitely, yeah. This one, A Peculiar Combination by Ashley Reaver. Actually, it's the series, but I just grabbed the first one because I just wanted to do the whole thing. But this series, if you liked Ocean's 11, this is like that, historical sort of, kind of, but not, or Leverage. It's got the same feel. You're kind of looking at an anti-hero at the beginning, but they're rapidly becoming true heroes. There is a repentance there, and it made me think about, you know, not just how we perceive people, and oh, well, that person's a criminal, so we don't want to have anything to do with them. As opposed to, that person is a criminal, they have skills, but we can teach them to use those skills in a way that benefits the country, or they can just pay for their crimes. And that's kind of what this is all about. But it got me thinking about how we perceive people and how much of it is accurate, how much of it is inaccurate, and how often we kind of we tend to go to extremes. We'll either go, okay, this person's a criminal, but I need to be compassionate and understanding and, you know, helpful, to the extent that we ignore the fact that there are people who are victimized by their crimes. That's not good. Or we go the other direction, is you're a criminal, you're scum, I don't want to have anything to do with you, instead of, yeah, but you're scum that Jesus died for. This is not Christian fiction. But this is what is going on in my head. You know, you're scum that Jesus died for, just like I was scum that Jesus died for. And where does that play into how I respond to you? So that's not what the book is about. This book is not about any of that, but it got me thinking. And so it's a good mystery. It's a fun book. It's a great story. But forget all that. It got me thinking. And I love it when books get me thinking, even if it has nothing to do with what the point of the book was. So there's that. The Haunted Bookshop by Christopher Morley. This one just got me thinking a lot about what readers love and why readers love to read. And there's one quote in here. It's something about the only way to lay the ghost of a book is to read it. But no, this book really made me think about not just who readers are and what readers love, but who sells us the books and what does it mean to them? Are they book lovers? And does that affect the way that they recommend a book? Which then got me going down a rabbit trail, because, you know, I was reading this for, I think it was for Chantal Reads All Day's You've Got Mail Challenge that I read. So a lot of this went into one of my books because I had my character fall in love with the book. But this, BookTube becomes a little bit like you're a bookseller. Not that you have a bookstore, but you're recommending books that you love. And there's a difference when you walk into, think You've Got Mail again, you walk into a bookstore and you say, you know, I'm looking for something for my daughter. She likes characters who challenge the way things are and either learn why they are the way they are or show others why maybe they don't have to be that way. You know, I'm looking for something like that. And the bookseller goes, yes, here, this one, or maybe that one, or maybe this one. And then you'll see that on avid readers of Christian fiction all the time. Someone says, I'm looking for a book, and it's like some obscure thing. And then like 30 different, oh, try this one, try that one, try that one. That's a bookseller. Forget whether they have a bookstore. Versus you go into Fox Books, and this gal knows specifically even what she wants. My daughter is supposed to read the shoe books. I don't know who the author is. Someone just said she had to read the shoe books. And the guy there, he's not a bookseller. He's an employee of a bookstore. And he's just like, I don't know. But the bookseller is there. And she's just, you know, Kathleen Kelly, she's like, here's how you spell it. This is the book. This is the one. Oh, but that one's out of print. She knows her book. She's a bookseller, book lover, as opposed to just an employee at a store. So that's where my brain went with all of just in this. And it's not what it's talking about, but it's what it made me think. So there's my 5 things I love and hate in a book. What are yours? Just one thing that you love and one thing that you hate in books. Curious readers want to know. So anyway, there you go. That's where I'm coming from. Hopefully it'll give you an idea of why I love and don't love a book to help you decide if it's something you want to look at. I'll be back with more books. I've got lots to talk about. I got lots. So see you later.